In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to add finished product to our inventory from a sales order. This is not a full tutorial on sales orders. We do have other resources for how to train you on how to do sales orders. However, we will be covering sales order some, so you can see how the process flows through the system. But the first thing we want to look at is products. And the product, we're just going to show you a single sales order with a single product on it. And that product is going to be this finished product. And the reason it's a finished product is because it's made up of components. So it's a Hello Kitty printed t-shirt, which has a Hanes Beefy t-shirt. It has designs associated with it. It has product modifiers. We want to increase the value of the inventory for this item. So the inventory value, we want to increase it by 27 cents to account for our production labor and production supplies. And you can see that's going to decrease the appropriate cost of goods and expense accounts. So that's the setup for the product. Now, let's also go to our physical inventory module. And there's our Hello Kitty white shirt. And you can see that we use a separate inventory account for this item. We're not using our generic inventory account. We're using our Hello Kitty inventory account. So that's kind of the setup that's relevant to this particular item. Now let's go to a sales order. And the same things that I told you in the previous tutorial are true in this one. And that is, in previous versions of OnSite 6.1 and before, to add finished product to inventory, you had to use what was called a preprint production order. Now you can still do that in OnSite 7, but you don't have to. In fact, any sales order can be used to really handle any kind of transaction. And the reason why is because we moved a lot of the power that used to be in order types has now been pushed down to the line item level. So what I'm going to show you in this tutorial is a preprint production order, but keep in mind the same item could be entered onto any kind of sales order. So if I click on View All and go down to the bottom, you'll see here I already have a preprint production order in the system with the Hello Kitty Flower Mania design associated with it. And if I look at this sales order, we're not going to cover this in a lot of detail, the sales order side of it. We have customer information, we have design information. What we're interested in is line items. So I have a Invoice tab and a Work Order tab. This is covered in more detail in order entry resources. But because we're not charging anybody for this item, we're just producing it and putting it into inventory, we only see the items on the work order. And on the work order, I see the finished product, which is my first item, and I also see the components that make up that product. And we only have one, but there could be multiple here. So let's go ahead and click on the Hello Kitty printed t-shirt. And let's look at the behaviors that control this particular product. Well, I can see here this product has no source. The reason why is because this is something that we're making. It's not coming from anywhere. The production that we're doing on it is we're allowing component items. We're not applying a design to this item because we're actually applying it to the component. If I look on components, I can see which items make up this product. And it's actually this product is the one that we'll be doing. The component is what we'll be doing the designs on. So the production is only allowing component items. We also have storage. What are we doing with this item when we're done with it? Well, are we going to ship it to the customer, or are we going to add it to inventory? In this case, we're adding to inventory, but we're not charging anyone for it. We'll charge someone for it later when we pull it from inventory and ship it. Now let's scroll through to our next item. And now this is the Hanes Beefy tee that is the component of the Hello Kitty t-shirt. And I can see here it's a component of this item. It tells me what it's a component of. I can see here the sourcing. Well, this particular item we allow to purchase it. We also allow pulling it from inventory. Once we've pulled it from inventory or purchased it, we can apply design to this item, or we can subcontract it out to another vendor for embellishment. So those are the different controls that I have, or behaviors that I have set for each line item. Okay, so now let's take this order briefly through its the cycle of how it would get produced in the system. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my purchasing section, and I'm going to see buy. I could buy it. I could pull it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a kind of a weird scenario here. Is I'm going to pull half of this from our blank inventory, and I'm going to buy half of it. And so I want you to see how that affects the general ledger transactions. So I'm going to specify alternate quantities. We're going to do 33 and 12. We're going to pull from inventory. And all of these features I'm showing you quickly are covered fully in other tutorials. And then I'm going to go to the Buy tab, and the rest of the items I'm going to purchase for $250 from Atlantic Coast Cotton. And so I'm going to issue a purchase order, and we'll put in a shipping amount as $13, and I'm going to go ahead and issue that per PO. So now we've done all of the purchasing on this item. Now, in a real-world sales order, this would go through the rest of the cycle in Shopworks. So the product would get received, the production would get done on it. We have some custom indicators which might be checked off or not checked off. We're not shipping this order, but we'd eventually get to the invoicing phase, and that's what we're going to jump to right now. I'm going to skip over these other areas because they don't really affect the inventory, the specific things that we're interested in for this tutorial. So if I go over to invoicing on this order, this is where I can invoice the order. Now, a pre-print production order is very much like an inventory order. Even though we're not charging anyone for it, we need to invoice the order to say the order is completed and to also make the general ledger entries. But before we do that, we need to add the finished product to inventory. The order's been produced now. The product needs to be added to inventory, and where we do that is from the invoicing section. And we go to inventory add, and you can see here's my Hello Kitty printed t-shirts, and I can type in my quantities here. We only produced 70 of those, and we produced 69 of these, and the reason was because we had some errors on the order. We messed up some shirts, and you'll see here that tracks it as 5 defects. Now you'll notice I also have a view button next to that item. So if I click on that, I can see here my settings, my subcontract costs, which there aren't any. Those will be included in the inventory value. And also my product modifiers will be included in the inventory value. So I click on Done. And I'm going to go ahead and add this item to inventory. Now if I look at added, I can see that this has now been added to our physical inventory. And if I were to go over to my physical inventory module and go to transactions and click on view all, let's go down to our last transaction. And I can see here we've added those Hello Kitty printed t-shirts in the proper quantities from this order, order number 1730. Now let's go back to the item, or let's go back to the order rather, in invoicing. So now these have been added, the product's been added to inventory. I can now invoice the order. I'm going to mark it as invoiced. And if I click on General Ledger, I will see the different General Ledger entries that are made. And let's look at a bigger version of this. So I'm going to say related to product, and let's really look at what's happening here. So we had $247.50 came from out of inventory work in progress. We had our inventory was actually increased by $82.65. Hello Kitty inventory, was decreased by $82.65. That was the product that we pulled out of inventory. This is the product that we purchased. Blank product. Blank product purchased. Blank product pulled from inventory. Hello Kitty inventory was increased this much, and that was offset by our defects. We increased our defects, cost of goods defects, because we had some defects on the order. Then we also had a reduction in expenses. and that's to offset the inventory amount. So some of that went to production supplies, and some of that went to production. So all of our entries are made and automatically tracked in the system through the general ledger when the order is invoiced. Now you'll notice our inventory account, Hello Kitty inventory account, was increased $356.22. And if we go over to our inventory, physical inventory module, and we go down to the bottom, we can also see that our Hello Kitty printed T-shirt was also $356.22. So the physical inventory and the general ledger inventory is automatically being coordinated through these two modules. Another thing to note is that this inventory component here was when we pulled the blank goods from inventory. So if we had never done that, if we just purchased products directly from a vendor and applied it to this order, we would only have this inventory work in progress account. We would not have this account. Also, if we did not have any inventory defects, this account would not be there. And lastly, if we did not have any product cost modifiers, neither of these would be there. So in the very simplest scenario, without all these additional settings that we have, we would simply have inventory work in progress would be reduced, inventory Hello Kitty would be increased, and they'd be the same dollar amount. But because we have other things going on, other settings, we have some defects here, there's some other accounts that are being hit. So all of this is tracked automatically as you're using the system. That concludes this tutorial on how to manually add, or add through order entry, finished product.